Welcome back. We are now hearing from the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, the largest bank in the United States, Jamie Dimon, about a potential recession. And one thing I have to say to my viewers is I am sorry for being so bearish on this channel. We're going to be talking about a lot of bullish things in this video, a lot of bullish sentiment and bullish areas to invest. But this does not take away the fact that, in my view, we have been so on point on this channel, more than any other channel. No other channel that I am seeing out here on YouTube is talking about the fact that we are past euphoria phase, and euphoria was in the middle of the year when all of these Bitcoin treasury companies were popping up, Ethereum treasury companies were popping up, Solana treasury companies. That effectively was euphoria in the markets. Maybe not the tippy top of the cycle, but again, we are now at 550 days, the 18-month time frame after the Bitcoin halving, which historically in the previous two cycles marked the top of the market. And by 550 days in all three Bitcoin halving cycles, it hit the top of the market. So I am sorry that I am bearish to all the bulls out there. But I do think that it's important that the bulls understand that there is a rug pull coming. When it's going to come, where it's going to happen in the markets, I don't know. But there is a lot of things getting priced in. And we're going to be talking about that with MicroStrategy, with Nakamoto, some of these other Bitcoin treasury companies. But more importantly, we're going to talk about where we can invest to really increase our investments, because keep in mind, I'm not out of the market, right? I may be out of cryptos and specific cryptos and crypto products, but there's a lot of things printing, like, the largest company on the planet, NVIDIA. NVIDIA is now almost a $5 trillion market cap. And I want you guys to keep in mind, the entire crypto market combined, all the altcoins, all the meme coins, all the coins, everything combined is just around $4 trillion. So this one company has a higher market cap than all the cryptos combined. There's bullish things happening in the market. Let's get into it. We're going to start right here with what Jamie Dimon said about a 30% chance of a market correction. This is the Cryptoviser podcast. We've been uploading every single day since 2018 to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. So do me a favor, give the video a free thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss a new video. And I really want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Let me know where you think we are in this cycle and about what we're talking about in today's video. Let's get into it. So as you guys know, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, he said recently that he's far more worried than others about the US stock market correction, estimating the risk at 30% versus the market thinking that there's a 10% risk. He warned the downturn could happen within 6 to 24 months. He cited rising geopolitical tensions. By the way, I'm going to show you the video of when he talked about this in just a second. Fiscal spending, politics, and global remilitarization as major risks. He also noted that while AI will ultimately pay off, much of today's investments may be wasted, similar to in the dot-com era. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about this whole AI sector, because there's a lot of money being pumped into it. And like we talked about, a lot of the money is being pumped in on the front end, right, for the software like OpenAI, XAI, Google, Gemini, and all of those. But really where the money is going to be made is in the infrastructure for these data centers, for the AI compute. We'll get into that in just a little bit. He pushed back on claims of declining confidence in the US dollar, calling it still the best currency, but suggested investors might consider diversifying. So let's listen to what he said here. And I want you to listen to what specifically he says, because it's not necessarily whether he thinks there's going to be a recession. Listen to what he says about whether he's worried about it. Let's listen in.
And you're not worried about a recession in 2026 for the US. You made that clear.
I think it could happen in 2026. I'm not worried about it as a different statement. We'll deal with it. We'll serve our clients. We'll navigate through it. A lot of us have been through them before. You don't wish it because certain people get hurt, but it could happen in 2026.
We're still, of course, in the US government shutdown.
But I do think there are positives. Like deregulation is a real positive, which also helps animal spirits as a positive. And in the one big beautiful bill, there's also more stimulus that has positives for the economy, but maybe negatives for inflation. So how it all sorts out, we'll see.
Markets are looking through the US government shutdown. Is there a period of time, if this shutdown continues, where markets start to wake up and become concerned?
I don't think so. Look, I don't like shutdowns. I think it's just a bad idea, and I don't care what the Democrats, Republicans say. It's a bad idea. It's not a way to run a railroad. I don't think it's critical. We've had, I forgot the number, 4 or 5 or 6. One went for 35 days. I'm not sure anyone really affected the economy and the market in a real way.
And you know what?
And that's one of the things to keep in mind, right? Because what you hear him say, right, is whether he's worried about a recession or not. He basically didn't sound worried, right? It sounds like he believes there will potentially be a downturn or a correction or a recession, but he's not worried about it. And the reason he's not worried about it is because the largest bank in the world, they prepare for that. So if they see a recession coming or a correction coming, what do you think they're doing? They're not buying all-time record highs. In fact, the smart money is and has been selling. Again, in a bull market, you don't have to convince anybody that we're in a bull market. We're at the stage in the cycle where the MicroStrategy bulls are trying to convince you, oh, well, accretive dilution is great for the price of Bitcoin and Bitcoin per share and all of this. They have to convince you that it's a good time to invest in the stock at all-time record highs. And when the trend is your friend and the trend is showing down trending in cryptos across the board, not just Bitcoin. And, it has been a weakened cycle, but we've talked about this very extensively on this channel. This shows you the Bitcoin price after a number of days since the halving. And you can see every single cycle from the first to the second to the third to now we're in the fourth, diminishing returns. And again, no other YouTuber talks about this. They're all saying, well, I think that we're in a bullish sentiment right now, especially if the government reopens. It's like, well, what do we think is going to happen at the end of October? Well, we're getting MicroStrategy earnings. And what happened during the previous MicroStrategy earnings? They said they made $10 billion and the stock is down 20% since then. So we're going to be getting into that in just a little bit, but let's start right here with NVIDIA. Shares rise after the CEO says that AI computing demand is up substantially. And we know that. And again, this is the back end. This is the infrastructure play. These companies that are creating the AI, this takes up a lot of computers, like compute power, right? And we've already heard that OpenAI is going to be using the amount of energy that you need to power New York City for a month or something like that. They are using a lot of energy, a lot of data, a lot of compute power, a lot of servers, a lot of bandwidth. And to get all of that, they need the infrastructure. And so, again, right now, what have I been saying all cycle? All of these Bitcoin mining companies, if they didn't pivot to a different strategy than they had in the previous cycle, they were going to fail. Because in the previous cycle, most of the Bitcoin mining companies had major issues. And a lot of them went bankrupt or had to restructure or take out a lot of debt or get bailed out by BlackRock and B. Riley. So what did we see happening in the middle of 2025? Again, when we called the top of the market, this in July, right? June, July, when all these Bitcoin treasury companies were popping up, most of these Bitcoin mining companies started to announce and really drive the pivot that they were making from Bitcoin mining into other businesses. Bit Digital, BTBT, this company literally sold all of their Bitcoin mining operations or mining machines and pivoted to Ethereum. Iris Energy, they pivoted to AI. Bitfarms, AI. Core Scientific, AI. CoreWeave is trying to buy Core Scientific. These are the pivots that we've been looking for. And them pivoting, right, their entire business structure should tell you as an investor, maybe I need to pivot my investment thesis. And that's what we have done, right? We've been talking about this for years on the channel. We've been talking about this all year, pivoting out of crypto and pivoting into other areas of the economy that are going to do well. Some people did that. Many of you who watch my videos have done that. And for that, you should definitely give yourself a thumbs up and give this video a free thumbs up. And while you're down there, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. And so a lot of people have already done this, but there's a lot of people in the market because no other channel is really talking about this, right? All the other channels are like, oh, well, it looks like a great dip to buy. And it's like, not if we just keep dipping, not if we're at the end stages of the cycle. Oh, but Cryptoviser, this billionaire said that we're going to have an extended cycle. This YouTuber said we have an extended cycle. The same YouTuber that said that in the previous cycle when their extended cycle top was actually the macro bottom for crypto. Oh, that's what you're talking about? That's what you want me to pay attention to? It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. But again, in markets, there's winners and losers. And on this channel, we talk about winning. We talk about how to make money in these markets. And so all these companies changing their investments, changing their business structure, that's big. And to me, that's bullish. And sure enough, Iris Energy, since the middle of the year, 10x already. Bitfarms, since the middle of the year, 5x or 4x, right? Bit Digital, we go BT, oops. And by the way, you could do this for Core Scientific. You could do this for TeraWulf. TeraWulf now has a partnership with Google. Google owns 15% of TeraWulf. Bit Digital, this is when they made the announcement of the pivot, right? So we went from $2 and we're already double. We're already up 100%. Meanwhile, MicroStrategy is down 20%. Bitcoin is basically flat from the middle of the year. And people are like, well, Cryptoviser, that's because we're taking a little bit of a breather. It's like, no. Everybody is exiting except for you, except for retail. You will be left holding the bag. So again, I'm sorry for being bearish, but I'm not bearish on everything. I'm actually really bullish. And a lot of people are like, well, Cryptoviser, you sold everything. You're going to regret it. It's like, you don't know what my portfolio looks like. In fact, I didn't sell everything. I pivoted my portfolio from losing positions or positions that were rotating into losing positions into winning positions. Like we talk about MicroStrategy because they're the biggest one, right? They're the biggest concern in the market. I used to own MicroStrategy, a lot of it. No longer. Why? Because the trade is over. But there's a lot of people who marry their bags and they cannot move on from a trade. So again, NVIDIA shares rise as CEO Jensen Huang says that AI compute demand is up substantially. And this is true, right? They need the power structure. He said this year, particularly in the last 6 months, demand of computing has gone up substantially. He says the AIs are smart enough that everybody wants to use it. Now we have two exponentials happening at the same time. Demand for chips is really high. He said, I think we're at the beginning of a new build out, beginning of a new industrial revolution, because not only do they have to build the chips and the computers to compute all of this data, but they also need the power to do it. And I mean, the companies that have the power are going to succeed right now because there's an imbalance in demand and supply. There's a very high demand for power and there's a very low supply of companies that have the infrastructure to power these AI data centers. That's why the Bitcoin mining companies pivoted to AI. They may not be fully out of Bitcoin mining because they're probably using Bitcoin mining as some cash flow and revenue. But also at certain times, it's going to be lucrative to mine Bitcoin, but at the top of the market, it's really not. So they pivoted. And all of these companies are doing very, very well when you look at their prices and continuing to go up because these blank check companies like OpenAI and all of these other AI companies, they have to buy into the companies that already have the infrastructure. And the companies that already have the infrastructure are the Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI. And so that's where we're at in the cycle. Like that, this is literally where we're at in the cycle. And the Bitcoin people are trying to convince everybody, oh no, this is still a great thing. Like Bitcoin is never going down. There's no bear market. Michael Saylor said there is no bear market ever again. Like Michael Saylor is God and knows for sure what is going to happen in the markets, right? We are in a 4-year cycle. I mean, the Bitcoin halvings occur every 4 years. That's not changing. And so the dynamics of how the price moves and the peak euphoria and the psychology of the markets, that has not changed. And again, in my view, we're in complacency phase. I want you guys to think about it. The Federal Reserve is meeting at the end of October. At the end of October, they're going to be deciding whether they cut rates, keep them the same, raise rates, whatever. The market right now is pricing in a 25 basis point cut. But the thing is, with the government shutdown, the data is being delayed. Right? The unemployment, the jobs data, the inflation data, all of this data is being delayed. And what have we heard from the Federal Reserve over and over and over? We make decisions based on data. So if they don't have the data, I don't necessarily know that they're going to cut. Now, the market is pricing it in. But what happens if the Federal Reserve says we're going to pause because we need data before we make more decisions? If they say that, that's the rug pull. It's literally the rug pull. And I don't think that the market is ready for that. Now, whether it happens or not, I don't know. That's just one scenario that could play out. But there's going to be some event, whether it's the Federal Reserve cutting rates and then saying we're going to pause in December and kind of wait for the data, or they get really, really bad data and then they have to do emergency cuts. But either way, that's bearish because emergency cuts say that the economy is way worse than people thought. And so people are going to say, well, that's what crypto is going to go much higher. Well, based on what? If the economy is not doing well, people are not going to be just going out and throwing their money at Bitcoin. People do that in a bull market, not in a bear market, not in a downtrending market. But a lot of people are like, Cryptoviser, you're just being a bear. You're just being a bear. Well, maybe I am. But where has most of the investments gone this cycle? Citibank backs stablecoin firm BVNK as Wall Street warms to crypto. Let's be clear, guys. Stablecoins are not crypto, right? Stablecoins are stablecoins. Crypto is Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, those kind of things. Stablecoins are stablecoins. It's a big difference. Big difference. And the stablecoins don't fit into the ethos of decentralization because they're not decentralized. They're centralized entities that are backed by the dollars, right? So it's just a digital version of the dollar. But how is this going to impact and positively affect crypto? People are like, well, if they buy stablecoins, then they're going to start buying crypto. No, that's not why the banks are getting involved in stablecoins. They're getting involved in stablecoins so that they can continue to transact in more of a digital form at lower fees and faster speeds. And by the way, to have an immutable ledger of all the transactions. It has nothing to do with crypto. But again, in the euphoria phase, the people who are emotional investors, which is a lot of retail, by the way, they can't see that. They're like, no, this is so bullish. The Citibank is getting involved in crypto. It's like, no, they're getting involved in stable coins. That's a big difference. So again, at the top, they have to convince you, oh no, it's stable coin, this is crypto. That's really good. The banks are going to use crypto. It's like, it's a stable coin. What's the difference? Like, how is that going to impact Ethereum or Bitcoin? Oh, because stable coins run on Ethereum. Okay, they have been running on Ethereum, and Ethereum has barely touched $5,000, and it hasn't gone to 10,000 or 20,000 as many people expected. So the narrative has been BS. But Cryptoviser, you're being too bearish. I mean, maybe I am being too bearish, right? But I don't think it's bearish. I think it's risk averse, right? I see the risk here that we're at the end stages of the cycle based on the Bitcoin halving. Everybody's the most bullish they've ever been. Nobody's talking about where we are from a Bitcoin halving perspective. I mean, any YouTuber can find this chart. It's on Twitter, on X. Just go to the Bitcoin halving tracker. And you can see it yourself. But everyone's like, oh no, Cryptoviser, we're down here. We're in the optimism phase. It's like, hold on. Let me zoom out on this one chart of Bitcoin in the all phase, right? So you're telling me all of this gain since 2022's low, all of this gain, we just hit the optimism phase? Like, look at the chart. Look at this chart. This is the optimism phase back in 2023. 2023 was really the bottom before we really started to pump. That was the optimism phase. We are now in complacency phase. This is after the euphoria phase. How do I know that? Well, just look at the charts. Look at the companies that pivoted in the middle of 2025. The middle of 2025 was the macro top of the market, right? People are going to say, Cryptoviser, that wasn't the top because we hit a higher high after that. You're missing the point, right? The macro top is a zoomed out understanding of where we are. Like in this zoomed out picture of the market, right? You can barely see that we topped out even higher than in the middle of the year. But that could just be volatility. That could just be the market in correction mode in a rotation phase from the market, people just think it's a light switch that we just go from bull to bear. Most people will become bearish once we drop 50%. Then they're going to get really bearish. We are going to get bullish, right? So right now, everybody is super bullish saying, no, Cryptoviser was wrong in the middle of the year. That wasn't the top. Guys, the middle of the year, we hit 125,000. Now in October, we hit 126,000. So we beat it by $1,000, which is like a 1% of 1% of the price. And they're cheering that on and coming on my channel and saying, you're an idiot, Cryptoviser. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. I'm like, okay. That tells me we are over here. We're over here because they're waiting for one more big pump and it's not coming. It hasn't come. It's not going to come. The only pump that we're going to have is to the downside, in my view. And I could be wrong on this. But what is the catalyst that we're going to get to $200,000, $300,000? Well, look at Nakamoto, for example. Nakamoto's CEO posted in October, about 4 months after they made this pivot in Kindly MD from a pharmaceutical company into a Bitcoin treasury company. He said the first company-wide meeting in-person meeting is today. After backing over 100 plus companies over the last decade, I can say we've built an incredible, one-of-a-kind team. It's going to be a marathon, and we have the endurance. So they've been building a team that has never met. They started a Bitcoin treasury company without actually meeting with the team to tell them, hey, this is our strategy. This is what we're going to do. Do you guys have any suggestions? How can we make this better? Until now. And when I say now, massive obliteration of the stock price. Just in the last 6 months since they made the announcement and converted to a Bitcoin treasury company, the price went from $25 to under $1, a 96% decline. And people are like, but Cryptoviser, we haven't even hit the top of the market yet. I mean, how can you say that? And by the way, there's a lot of YouTubers that are saying this. They're like, no, we're not at the top. We're not there. We have one more pump to go. And they keep saying that. All year they've been saying that. I said at the beginning of the year, we have one more pump to go. That pump was the middle of the year. That was it. Everything after that has just been volatility. It's been the bulls trying to hold the market up. 96% decline. And now they're having an all hands on deck meeting. Pledator on X said, imagine being a CEO and admitting you've never actually organized an in-person meeting with your team until several months after you raised nearly $1 billion and took your company public. And I would agree. Somebody asked David whether they are open to being acquired by another company. He said, we're not interested in being acquired by any company that has not gone through their own pipe unlock. I think we're the first. We'll get into pipe unlock in a minute. After they survive that, then we can chat. We'll always evaluate opportunities that benefit our shareholders. Now, this whole PIPE conversation, PIPE stands for private investment in public equity. So this is effectively like private investments into like a company's pivot, right? So they get shares of the company that are locked for a certain amount of time. It's similar to like an ICO occurring, right? You invest in the ICO, you get a certain amount of coins. You can't sell those coins for a certain amount of time. Very similar. Well, what happened with Nakamoto? Almost, I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of the PIPE investors have been selling their shares. And this is part of the reason that the price is going down. So think about that. A private investor purchased just a few months ago, and they're already selling their shares. Number one, it's a liquidity drain. Number two, it's no confidence in the company. So what changed from the middle of the year till now? Like, think about that. And these are big investors, very high net worth individuals, big Bitcoin bulls, and they're out. And it's not just Kindly this is occurring with. This is happening with a lot of these Bitcoin mining companies. Bitcoin treasury companies. You can look at SQNS. This is another one. Massive drawdown, right? Since the announcement right here, it went to $53 and it's down 83% since then. This is a huge issue. And, I don't think that, let me rephrase, the same thing is effectively occurring in MicroStrategy, but the price of the stock hasn't corrected yet. But what we're seeing in the rest of the market is, in these Bitcoin treasury companies, is it has. And nobody is talking about the fact that Kindly is already down 95%, and the price of Bitcoin is at all-time record highs. What happens if Bitcoin goes down 50%? If Bitcoin goes down 50%, we'll be at about $65,000, right? That means Nakamoto will be at a minimum 50 cents drop from where we are, if not even more. And with MicroStrategy, the only reason I think that they're still up but struggling to maintain this above $300 level is because it's the biggest one. And if we draw down in price of Bitcoin, I think that strategy will correct. And this is going to occur, guys. The idea that we're not going to ever hit a bear market again in Bitcoin, we're not going to have a correction. Guys, if the stock market drops, crypto is going to drop harder. Okay? If the AI world drops, crypto is going to drop harder. And this is all at play here. Whether it happens or not, that's a whole different story, but it's at play, meaning it's a very big possibility. And we have to put it into our investment thesis. The people who are not doing this, these people are going to get wrecked. Wrecked. They're going to go to zero, 96% decline. I mean, it's already happened in many cryptos and many stocks as well. This is why I say, like, the market is pricing these things in. And so, again, in a bull market, you don't have to convince anybody that an investment is a good investment. But we're now at the point where people are trying to convince people that MicroStrategy's debt is better than traditional corporate debt. Dan Hillary, who's a well-known MicroStrategy mega bull, he talks about that in this video. And Josh, who's a, MicroStrategy trader, he said the important distinction between Apple and MicroStrategy is that Apple sells their iPhones rather than claiming a certain number of iPhones held and calling it iPhone yield. And this is very important to understand because the difference between MicroStrategy debts are that they're not actually making money, right? They're taking the money and buying an asset. Now, in the long term, this could work out in the long term. But I remind you that MicroStrategy also has the ability to still sell like 9 billion more shares. 9 billion, which is full dilution of you as a shareholder. Where most companies who take out debt, like these Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI infrastructure, they're taking out debt to build facilities to get cash flow and revenue. So they're actually making money. MicroStrategy has no money cash flow from the Bitcoin business, right? They have a software business where they make a little bit of money, but their main business is Bitcoin. And so that doesn't jive well. Right now, we're still in the bull market. But in a corrective phase, guys, this is a huge risk. And, if we think about the last cycle, what happened to Voyager, Celsius, 3 Arrows Capital, Terra Luna, BlockFi, FTX was the last man standing. And it took one drawdown one basically sell from Binance of their FTT token, and everything collapsed. And that is a possibility here. If Bitcoin drops substantially, MicroStrategy, they can keep trying to raise money, but who's going to keep funding this money for a depreciating asset in the short term? That's a good question. And that brings us to what is going on this month. So they have an earnings call on October 30th. I want you guys to remember the Federal Reserve is meeting at the end of October. So depending on what happens with the Federal Reserve announcement, which I think both, no matter what, it's going to be bearish. One, they're going to say we don't have data, so next month we're not going to do anything, or this month we're not going to do anything. That's a possibility. But regardless of what they do, like if they cut by 25 basis points, the market already priced that in. And the fact that they don't have the data and that people are getting laid off in October because of the government shutdown, this is bearish. Then MicroStrategy, what's their deal? They don't make any money. But Cryptoviser, in their last earnings call in July, they said they made $10 billion, which is true. But they're doing this based on unrealized capital gains on their Bitcoin. This is not real revenue. It's not real income. It's not real. And the market called bullshit when they said they made $10 billion. If we go back, their earnings call was July 30th, okay? They said they made $10 billion in the quarter because they had, Bitcoin appreciation or whatever they want to call it, Bitcoin per share, Bitcoin accretion, accretive. I mean, I'm so sick of this financial gibberish that they spew out. And so is the market. And you guys don't have to believe me, just look at the chart. Look at the chart. They made the announcement that they made $10 billion with their new accounting. And since then, we're down 20%. And right after they made the announcement, by the way, the stock dropped 10%. Literally, the market said, no, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. But the bulls were like, wait, why is the price falling? They said they made $10 billion. This is amazing. This is the number one company in the world. No, guys, the market doesn't believe it because it's not actually money. It's not money. They can't give a dividend because they don't have any money. They're not selling any of the Bitcoin. And so if they say now, well, our earnings per share went up and we accretive diluted, and they give all that financial gibberish and say that, oh, well, we made $20 billion. What do you think the market's going to do? The market's going to go up. The market's going to say, wow, they did it. No, the market's going to say bullshit. And the price is going to drop. On top of whatever the Federal Reserve says. On top of Bitcoin being at I want you guys to think about this. Even if you don't believe me that the top of the market was in July, and you're saying, no, Cryptoviser, in the last cycle, the top of the market was November. The cycle before that, it was November, December. So even if you think it's November, December, the Federal Reserve and MicroStrategy are meeting at the end of October, right before November. So if November is the top of the market, what do you think is going to happen after this announcement? And so the price of MicroStrategy has been struggling. And one of the things that we talked about is Bitcoin just hit $126,000 the week that MicroStrategy made no purchases. Think about that. They didn't buy anything, and the price of Bitcoin went to all-time record high. But every time they buy, the price goes down. How does that work? And so what do we think is going to happen? Look, there's more volatility occurring in the MicroStrategy stock. And the more volatility, in my view, at this point in the cycle, tells me the market is rotating. It just is. And the reason I talk about MicroStrategy so much in these Bitcoin treasury companies is because they are the risk. Because if Nakamoto goes down to 50 cents, 40 cents, 30 cents, there is a potential they don't have a choice and they have to sell Bitcoin. There may not be a choice. Because the only other option is bankruptcy. And bankruptcy, you lose. As a shareholder, you lose, and the company loses. And they're going to be acquired by another company. And they're going to be acquired, let's say they have $400 million in Bitcoin. They're going to be acquired for $200 million. They're going to get a discount. And that may be MicroStrategy, right? But you as a shareholder lose. And that is bearish for the market. And it's not just Nakamoto. There's a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies that are in this situation. ProCap, that's Anthony Pompliano's company. They literally bought $118,000, something like that, all-time record highs. So if we go to $90,000, what's going to happen to the stock? That's something that a lot of people are not thinking about. The risk here is not MicroStrategy per se, but the risk here is these other treasury companies that go under and are forced to sell. Even if MicroStrategy goes and buys it up, this is bearish for the price because nobody's going to trust that this is not going to happen to MicroStrategy or to these other Bitcoin treasury companies or to the Ethereum treasury companies. And it's going to cause massive panic in the markets. You don't want to be in the market when there's panic. You want to be out before the panic and you want to get back in towards the end of the panic. But we're not there just yet. We're preparing for it. At least many of you are, because there's a lot of people, guys, they don't believe any of this. They think I'm wrong. They think that there's going to be no bear market again. There's going to be no corrective phase. They don't see the trend in the market is down. The trend in the treasury companies is down. The trend in crypto in general is down. The banks are not adopting crypto. They're adopting stable coins that has no impact on crypto. It has had no impact on crypto. The stable coin growth is continuing. And by the way, what are we also seeing? Value extraction from the market. Coinbase said they're never going to have a coin. All of a sudden, they're going to have a coin. Polymarket, they're going public. They may get a coin. They're getting invested by New York Stock Exchange. These Ethereum treasury companies, the Bitcoin, but there's still money to be made. The mining companies that pivoted to AI, the NVIDIAs of the world, the chips of the world, the infrastructure. These are the companies that are going to do well. And a lot of them are highly undervalued in my view. I mean, Bitfarms right now is 3.2 billion, and that's basically about 2.3 billion US. And Iris Energy is over 15 billion. And all of the AI pivot companies are trending towards being above $10 billion. And that, in my view, that's the play. Because even if we do have a correction, if the correction does occur, it's going to occur in these companies as well. But the money is still there for these companies, right? The AI companies, they have the blank check, regardless of what happens in the market, because there's this rush to make AI great again, like America, right? Like the United States. The United States is rushing to be ahead of every other country in the world. And so the money's going to keep flowing. Even if we do get a correction, I'll probably be buying that dip. I know many of you will be buying that dip as well in these AI pivot companies. Because they, at a minimum, again, NVIDIA is almost $5 trillion market cap. These companies are $2 to $10 billion. And they're going to be the infrastructure. They are needed. It's not an option for the AI companies. They need these companies. And so there's a very high possibility they're going to continue to run higher and higher and higher and higher while everybody's still. But Cryptoviser, what about MicroStrategy? You don't talk about MicroStrategy anymore. What about coin number 15,022? What about PP coin? It's like, guys, the crypto cycle is over. I don't like that the crypto cycle is over, but the crypto cycle's over. And when it's really over, we have a pocket of air that we're going to be dropping. How low that pocket of air is, I don't know. I definitely think that we're going to hit the MicroStrategy dollar cost average, which is around $74,000. So I'm thinking around $70,000. Maybe lower, but this is almost a guarantee in my view in a bear market. We'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think that I'm just being too bearish? But again, I'm not really that bearish. I'm bearish on one sector of the market, but I'm very bullish on many other sectors that we talk about on this channel. So make sure you guys are subscribed. That way you never miss any of these new videos, and give the video a free thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Crypto on.